Ravi had always loved the open land. After years of working in the city, he finally bought a wide ranch outside a small town. The ranch had green pastures, old oak trees, and even a quiet lake that stretched across the far edge of his property. To him, the lake was the crown of the land. It was calm, blue, and it mirrored the sky every morning. One summer afternoon, Ravi decided to bring out his old wooden boat. It was not a large boat, but it was strong and steady. He had kept it stored in his barn for months, waiting for the right day to set it on the lake. That morning he cleaned it, polished the edges, and smiled to himself as he imagined floating across the water in peace. With some effort, he pulled the boat on a trailer and slowly guided it down to the shore. The air was warm, and the breeze carried the scent of fresh grass. He pushed the boat into the lake, stepped inside, and let it drift away from the shore. The water rippled gently around him, and Ravi leaned back, enjoying the sound of birds singing from the trees. For him, it was a simple joy. It was his land, his lake, and his boat. But not everyone saw it that way. Across the lake, beyond a small stretch of trees, there was a residential community. That community was run by a strict homeowners association, better known as the HOA. The HOA controlled the houses, the lawns, the fences, and even the common spaces. They also had their own marina on the other side of the lake, where they charged residents a fee to dock their boats. From the balcony of one of those homes, a man named Paul spotted Ravi's boat. Paul was the head of the HOA, and he was known for his sharp eyes and louder voice. He frowned when he saw the boat drifting in the water. He assumed the boat was on their side of the lake, even though Ravi had started from his own shore. Without waiting to learn more, Paul picked up his phone and called the local police. "Someone is trespassing on our lake," he said firmly. "They brought a boat. You need to come at once." Meanwhile, Ravi was still drifting peacefully. He had no idea that anyone was watching, let alone that someone was making a complaint. He dipped his hand into the cool water and smiled. To him, the lake was freedom. He had grown tired of city streets, car horns, and long meetings. Here, there was only silence and nature. 8 minutes later, Ravi heard the sound of a car engine near the entrance of his ranch. He rowed his boat back to shore, curious about who might have arrived. When he stepped onto the grass, he saw 2 police officers walking toward him. Behind them, Paul was marching with his chest high, as if he were leading the officers on an important mission. "Sir," one of the officers said, "we got a call about unauthorized use of the lake. Do you live here?" Ravi nodded calmly. "Yes, this is my ranch. The lake is part of my land." Paul cut in before the officer could reply. "That's not true. This lake is for our community. He has no right to float a boat here without permission." Ravi looked at Paul and raised an eyebrow. "This is my lake. I bought this land, and it came with the lake. I did not trespass on anyone's property." The officers exchanged a quick glance. One of them asked, "Do you have proof of that, sir?" "Of course," Ravi said. He invited them into his ranch house and brought out a thick folder. Inside were all the documents of the purchase. He pointed at the map, which clearly showed the lake within his property lines. The officers studied the papers for a moment, then looked back at Paul. "It seems the lake belongs to him," one officer said. Paul's face turned red. "That cannot be right. Our community has always used that lake. We even have a marina there." Ravi gave a small smile. "Your marina is on your side. But the water you see here belongs to me. I have no issue with your community, but you cannot stop me from enjoying my own lake. The officers nodded. We cannot charge him with anything. He is within his rights. With that, they stepped back toward their car, leaving Paul standing stiff with anger. Paul glared at Ravi. You may think you won today, but this is not over. You will hear from us again. He turned and walked away quickly, his shoes crunching against the gravel path. Ravi watched him leave but did not speak. Instead, he went back to his boat and pushed it gently into the water again. He told himself not to let anger spoil his peace. The lake had been his dream, and no argument could take that away. Yet deep inside, Ravi was not only calm but also curious. Why did Paul care so much about the lake? Why had the Hoa been so quick to call the police instead of simply speaking to him first? And what did Paul mean by saying it was not over? As the sun lowered in the sky, painting the lake with golden light, Ravi leaned back in his boat again. He knew something was coming. He just did not know what. But he also knew one thing very clearly. If the Hoa wanted to test him, they had chosen the wrong man. Ravi was patient, but he was also strong, and he never let anyone walk over him. The ranch was his. The lake was his. And soon, the whole story around it would take a turn that no one in the town expected. The next morning, Ravi woke up early. The sunrise painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the lake glowed like a mirror. He sipped his tea on the porch and thought about what had happened the day before. The memory of Paul calling the police made him shake his head. It seemed silly to him, yet he could sense that the matter was far from finished. On the other side of the trees, the Hoa community was buzzing with talk. Paul had wasted no time calling a special meeting. The residents gathered in their clubhouse, a neat building with wide windows that faced the water. They sat in rows of chairs while Paul stood at the front, pacing back and forth. Neighbors, Paul began in his commanding voice, yesterday we had an incident. A man named Ravi floated a boat in our lake. I called the police, but unfortunately, he showed them some documents. He claims the lake is his. A murmur spread through the crowd. Some residents frowned, others looked surprised. An older woman raised her hand. But I thought this lake was always part of our community. We built our marina here, and we pay fees for its upkeep. Paul nodded quickly. Exactly. That is why this situation is dangerous. If Ravi truly owns the lake, it means our rights to use it are in question. Our marina may even be at risk. A younger man spoke up. Did you check the property records? Paul avoided his eyes. I will look into it, but I already know he is trying to take advantage of us. He wants to claim something that belongs to everyone. What Paul did not say was that the Hoa had never properly checked the boundaries when they built the marina years ago. They assumed the entire lake was theirs, but in truth, only a section fell inside their land. The rest, including the deeper part where Ravi had floated his boat, belonged to the ranch. Despite this, Paul stirred the crowd with strong words. He warned them that Ravi might charge them money to use the water or even block their boats. The thought of losing access made many residents upset. By the end of the meeting, the mood was tense. Some suggested speaking politely to Ravi. Others wanted to file complaints with the county. Paul, however, encouraged a harder stance. We must protect our community, he declared. We cannot let one man control our lake. Back at the ranch, Ravi spent his day tending to the horses. He brushed their coats, fed them fresh hay, and walked them across the pasture. He found comfort in the rhythm of ranch work. Still, he noticed a group of people standing by the far fence in the afternoon. They were pointing at the lake, talking among themselves, and shaking their heads. Later that evening, a letter arrived. It was an official notice from the Hoa, delivered right to his gate. The letter demanded that Ravi stop using the lake until ownership matters are clarified. It also accused him of disturbing the peace by launching a boat without permission. Ravi read the letter twice, then folded it neatly. He did not feel anger this time. Instead, he felt a quiet determination building inside him. He had faced bigger challenges in life, and he knew how to deal with people who tried to push him around. That night, he called his friend Kamal, who worked in real estate. Kamal had helped him buy the ranch, and he was an expert at reading property records. Ravi explained the situation, and Kamal laughed softly over the phone. "They do not know what they are doing," Kamal said. "The lake is yours. I will send you the detailed survey maps tomorrow. If they want a fight, you are in the stronger position." The next day, Ravi received the maps and documents. He looked at the lines carefully. There was no mistake. Almost the entire lake lay within his land, except for the corner where the Hoa had built their marina. That marina, in fact, was slightly over the boundary. It rested partly on his side. When Ravi realized this, he leaned back in his chair and thought hard. The Hoa believed they had power over him. But in truth, they were the ones who had built on land that was not fully theirs. He could have taken immediate action against them, but Ravi was not a man who rushed. He preferred to wait for the right time. Later in the week, Paul showed up at the ranch again. He arrived with 2 Hoa board members, their arms crossed tightly as they stood behind him. Paul spoke with a forced smile. "Ravi," he said, "we have a problem. The community does not feel comfortable with you floating boats in the lake. It makes people nervous. So we ask that you stop." Ravi kept his calm. "Why should I stop, Paul? This lake belongs to me. I am not harming anyone." Paul's smile faded. "If you do not cooperate, the community will take legal action. You may not enjoy the trouble that follows." Ravi looked at him steadily. "Do as you wish. I have all the papers. The law will be on my side." The board members shifted uneasily, but Paul refused to back down. He turned and marched away, his voice sharp as he told the others that they would handle this. That evening, Ravi sat on the porch again. The lake was still and calm, but he knew storms were gathering beyond the trees. He was not afraid, though. He had learned long ago that patience and planning often won more battles than anger. As he watched the moon rise over the water, an idea began to form in his mind. If the Hoa loved their marina so much, perhaps there was a way to turn their stubbornness into his advantage. He did not know how yet, but he felt the answer was close. The story was only beginning, and Ravi was ready for it. The week moved slowly, but tension between the ranch and the Hoa grew stronger with each passing day. Ravi continued to live peacefully, working with his animals, fixing fences, and enjoying quiet evenings on the lake. Yet he noticed the way residents from the other side now watched him whenever he rowed his boat. Some whispered among themselves, some shook their heads, and a few even shouted across the water, telling him to get off their lake. Ravi never shouted back. He kept his calm, though his patience was tested. What the neighbors did not know was that Ravi now held something much stronger than patience. The survey maps in his office drawer showed a truth that would change the entire game. One evening, Kamal visited the ranch. He brought more papers and a folder filled with county records. As they sat at the wooden dining table, Kamal spread the maps across the surface. "Look here," Kamal said, pointing to a bold black line. "This is your property boundary. The marina they built years ago crosses right into your side. It is not just close to the line, it is over it." Ravi studied the map. "So they built part of their marina on my land?" Kamal nodded. "Yes. If you wanted, you could file a claim and have them remove it. But I think you should wait. You have the stronger hand. If you play this wisely, you can do more than just defend yourself. You can turn the entire situation in your favor." Ravi leaned back, silent for a moment. He was not a man who liked unnecessary fights, but he also believed in fairness. The Hoa had called police on him, sent him letters, and tried to scare him away from his own lake. Now he realized they had been the ones trespassing all along. The next morning, Paul called another Hoa meeting. He stood in front of the residents, his voice rising as he spoke. "Neighbors, this man Ravi is stubborn. He refuses to stop using the lake. He even threatens to challenge our rights. We must act now. I propose we collect funds for legal action. We cannot let him win." Some residents clapped in support, but others looked nervous. A woman named Maria raised her hand. "Paul, if he really owns the lake, what good will legal action do? It will cost us money, and we might lose." Paul frowned. "We cannot simply give up. This lake has been ours for years." Another man spoke softly. "But we never checked the records. What if he is right?" Paul cut him off quickly. "I will not allow fear to divide us. We stand together, or we lose everything." Back at the ranch, Ravi heard about the meeting from a friendly neighbor who sometimes sold vegetables at the local market. The news did not surprise him. He expected Paul to push harder. But instead of worrying, Ravi began to prepare. The following weekend, he drove into town and visited the county office. With calm steps, he walked to the clerk's desk and requested certified copies of the land survey and ownership records. The clerk stamped the papers and handed them to him. Ravi placed them carefully in his bag. Now he had undeniable proof of his rights, signed and sealed by the county. When he returned to the ranch, he stood by the lake with the documents in his hand. The evening sun glowed on the water, and a thought crossed his mind. The Hoa believed they were strong because they acted together, but strength without truth was fragile. With one move, he could turn the entire conflict around. That chance came sooner than expected. A few days later, Paul and two board members walked onto the edge of Ravi's property again. Their steps were firm, their expressions sharp. "Ravi," Paul said, "this is our final warning. If you continue to use the lake, we will take you to court. We have already spoken with a lawyer." Ravi did not raise his voice. He walked slowly back to the porch, returned with the stamped documents, and handed them to Paul. "Before you waste your community's money, read these." Paul frowned but took the papers. As he scanned the lines, his face grew pale. The board members leaned in, reading the same words that confirmed Ravi's ownership. And then their eyes widened when they reached the section about the marina. "This cannot be," Paul muttered. "It is the truth," Ravi said calmly. "The marina you built is standing partly on my land. For years, you have been using what is mine. I could take this matter to court today, and you would be forced to remove it. But I am not rushing. I want you to think carefully about how you wish to proceed." The board members exchanged nervous glances. They understood the weight of the papers in Paul's hands. If Ravi took legal action, the Hoa would face heavy costs and embarrassment. Paul clenched his jaw. "You will not get away with this." Ravi gave a steady look. "I am not trying to get away with anything. I am living peacefully on my land. But you tried to take my rights from me. Now the truth is clear. The choice is yours." Without another word, Paul shoved the papers back at Ravi and stormed away. The board members followed, whispering anxiously to each other. That night, the Hoa board held another meeting in secret. This time, the atmosphere was heavy. Some members were angry, others were worried, and many were afraid. Maria, who had always spoken calmly, finally said, "We pushed him too far. He holds the stronger position now. If he decides to act, we will lose the Marina." Paul banged his fist on the table. "We cannot give in. The lake is the heart of this community. If we let him control it, the residents will blame us." But in his heart, Paul knew the truth. Ravi had turned the tables, and the Hoa no longer had the advantage. Back at the ranch, Ravi sat on his porch once more, watching the moon rise over the lake. The water shimmered softly in the night. He felt calm, but also firm in his decision. He would not be bullied, and he would not be silent. He had shown his hidden card, but he had not yet played his final move. That, he thought, would come soon. And when it did, the Hoa would no longer look at him as an outsider. They would look at him as the man who changed everything. The conflict between Ravi and the Hoa had become the talk of the small town. At the local grocery store, in the barber's shop, and even at the post office, people whispered about the rancher who stood against the strict Hoa. Some admired him for his courage, while others worried about what would happen if the matter reached court. Ravi did not let the gossip disturb his peace. He kept his days simple, caring for his horses, fixing fences, and rowing his boat on the lake in the evenings. Yet he knew the Hoa was restless. He could almost feel their eyes on him whenever he drifted across the water. Meanwhile, Paul was struggling to hold his community together. After Ravi showed the stamped county papers, doubt had spread among the residents. Many no longer trusted Paul's claims. At the latest Hoa meeting, voices rose in frustration. "You told us the lake was ours," one man said sharply. "But Ravi proved it belongs to him." Paul snapped back, "The documents may say that, but we can still fight. Courts do not only look at maps. They look at history, too. We have used this lake for years. That must mean something." Maria stood up, her voice steady but firm. "History cannot erase ownership. We built our marina without checking the boundary. Now we are the ones at fault. If Ravi wanted, he could demand we remove it tomorrow. Instead of fighting him, we should find a way to make peace." A few residents clapped in support of Maria's words, but Paul scowled. He was not ready to give up. To him, the lake was not just water. It was pride, power, and control. Losing it would mean losing his influence over the community. The following week, the Hoa tried a new approach. They sent Ravi another letter, this time more carefully written. It suggested that the lake could be shared. The Hoa proposed that Ravi allow the community to continue using the marina if they agreed to certain conditions. When Ravi read the letter, he smiled faintly. He could see that Paul was under pressure. Still, the letter did not show true respect. It assumed Ravi would simply bend to their plan. He decided not to reply right away. Instead, Ravi visited the town library to study more about property law and water rights. He read old case studies and spoke with the librarian, who was surprised by his patience. Most people would rush to court, she said. But you are waiting. Ravi answered calmly, a fight without understanding is a waste. If I act, I want to act with knowledge. Back at the ranch, Kamal visited again. He looked at the lake with a thoughtful smile. They are cornered now. You could demand they pay rent for using the marina. Or you could buy the marina itself and end the matter completely. Ravi raised an eyebrow. Buy their marina? Yes, Kamal said. It is on your land. They built it without checking. If you offer to buy it, some of the residents may agree. They are tired of this fight, and money will make them listen. Ravi liked the idea. It was simple, direct, and fair. He would not destroy what the community had built, but he would take control of it in a way that left no doubt about ownership. A few days later, the chance came. Maria knocked on his gate and asked to speak with him. Ravi welcomed her kindly and offered her tea on the porch. She spoke honestly. Ravi, many of us do not want this fight. We just want peace. But Paul keeps pushing the board to act against you. People are losing trust in him. If you have an idea, now is the time to share it. Ravi nodded. I do have an idea. I do not wish to harm the community, but the marina is standing partly on my land. That cannot continue without change. I am willing to buy the marina from the Hoa. If the residents agree, I will take full ownership. They may still use it, but under my rules. This way, the matter ends with fairness. Maria listened carefully. She knew this offer was strong but reasonable. I will bring this to the next meeting, she promised. When Maria shared Ravi's proposal with the community, reactions were mixed. Some residents saw it as a solution. Others feared it meant losing freedom on the lake. Paul, however, reacted with anger. He wants to buy what is ours, Paul shouted. Do you not see what he is doing? First he takes the lake, now he takes the marina. Soon he will control everything. But his words no longer carried the same weight. Too many people had grown tired of the endless conflict. One resident stood and said, Paul, you told us we had the power. You told us the lake was ours. But you were wrong. If Ravi is offering to buy the marina, at least that saves us from a costly fight. The meeting ended in heated debate, but cracks had formed in Paul's control. More residents were beginning to see Ravi not as an enemy, but as someone who might bring stability. Back at the ranch, Ravi prepared himself. He knew the Hoa would resist at first, but he also knew time was on his side. The truth of the documents, the weight of the law, and the patience of his own heart gave him strength. One evening, as he floated quietly in his boat, he looked toward the marina lights across the water. Soon, he thought, those lights might shine under his name. The idea did not fill him with pride or greed, but with calm certainty. The tide of the story was turning. What had started as a simple boat ride on a summer afternoon was about to reshape the future of the entire lake. The weeks that followed were filled with tension, but also quiet change. Ravi went about his ranch life as always, yet the Hoa community across the lake was divided. Some residents still clung to Paul's words, believing the lake should belong to them. Others, tired of endless arguments, began to support Ravi's offer to buy the marina. One evening, Maria visited Ravi again. Her face showed both hope and worry. She sat on the porch with him as the lake reflected the colors of the sunset. Ravi, she began, I think the residents are ready to listen. But Paul will not step aside. He is angry, and he is telling people you want to take everything from us. If you want to succeed, you must speak to the community directly. Show them who you are. Ravi listened carefully. He was not a man who sought crowds or speeches, but he understood the importance of this moment. If they wish to hear me, I will come, he said simply. A few days later, the Hoa called for another meeting. This time, Maria insisted that Ravi be invited to present his side. The clubhouse was filled with people, the air thick with curiosity. Paul stood at the front, arms crossed, clearly unhappy about Ravi's presence. Ravi entered calmly, carrying a folder of documents. He greeted the room politely, then placed the papers on the table. I am not here to fight, Ravi began. His voice was steady, and the room grew quiet. When I bought my ranch, I dreamed of peace. I wanted land, water, and open sky. I never wished for conflict. But when I floated my boat on my lake, your leader called the police on me. He told you I was trespassing, yet the truth is different. These documents prove the lake belongs to my land. They also show that your marina was built partly on my side. Murmurs spread through the room. Ravi continued. I could take this matter to court. I could demand the removal of the marina. But I do not wish for destruction. I wish for fairness. That is why I offer to buy the marina from the Hoa. If you agree, I will take ownership. You may still use it, but under rules that respect my rights as the landowner. This way, you save money, avoid legal trouble, and bring peace to this lake we all love. The room fell silent for a long moment. Then voices rose in discussion. Some residents nodded in agreement. Others asked questions. Paul, however, slammed his hand on the table. Do not be fooled, Paul barked. This man is clever with words, but he wants control. Today he buys the marina, tomorrow he takes more. If you sell, you give away your freedom. Ravi did not answer with anger. He simply opened the folder again and lifted one more paper. This is the certified survey from the county. If I wanted control, I would already have it. The marina is standing on my land. I am offering to buy it so that both sides can live without fear. For the first time, many residents looked not at Paul, but at Ravi. They saw a man who spoke calmly, who held the truth in his hands, and who offered a path out of conflict. The vote was called that evening. The residents raised their hands one by one. At first, it was a mix, but slowly more hands lifted in favor of selling the marina. By the end, the result was clear. A majority supported Ravi's offer. Paul's face turned red with fury. You are making a mistake, he shouted. But his words no longer carried power. The decision was made. Within a week, the paperwork was signed. The Hoa sold the marina to Ravi, who paid a fair price through his savings. The transfer was recorded at the county office, leaving no doubt about ownership. The marina now belonged to the rancher whose boat had once caused so much uproar. On the day the deal was complete, Ravi stood on the dock of the marina. The water lapped gently against the wood. Some residents came to shake his hand. Maria smiled warmly and said, You brought peace, Ravi. Not everyone sees it yet, but soon they will. Ravi thanked her quietly. He was not proud in a loud way, but inside he felt a deep satisfaction. He had stood his ground without anger, and he had turned a fight into an agreement. Paul, however, refused to show his face at the marina again. Slowly, his influence in the community faded. Residents who once feared him began to ignore his words. In time, he stepped down from the Hoa board, leaving leadership to those with calmer voices. Ravi kept his promise. He allowed the residents to use the marina under simple rules. They could dock their boats, fish, or sit by the water, but they respected the fact that the land was his. To most of them, the arrangement soon felt normal. The anger that once filled the lake faded away, replaced by quiet acceptance. Life at the ranch returned to peace. Ravi continued his daily work, caring for his horses, planting new trees, and enjoying the calm of the lake. Some evenings, he rowed his boat from his shore to the marina, not as a stranger, but as its new owner. As he sat in his boat, watching the water glow under the setting sun, he thought about how strange life could be. A simple boat ride had started a storm. The Hoa had called the police, sent letters, and threatened him. Yet 8 minutes of trouble had turned into an opportunity that ended with him owning their prized marina. Ravi smiled to himself. He had not sought power, but he had claimed his right with patience and wisdom. And now, whenever the water rippled under the breeze, he knew the lake was not only peaceful, but also truly his. The story that had once divided neighbors now became a quiet lesson. People in the town spoke of it for months, telling how the rancher outwitted the Hoa not with anger, but with steady strength. And every time someone asked Ravi how he managed it, he simply said, "I did not fight the water. I let it flow." The ranch, the lake, and the marina stood as proof of that truth, shining under the open sky.